Welcome to Perfecting Church. Join us in making the world a better place. Overcoming by faith, one thought and action at a time.
Greater than him, that nobody's mightier than him, that nobody is stronger than him. I have to have that mindset. It's true no matter what, but it doesn't become my reality until I believe it, right? It's true no matter what, but it doesn't become my reality until I believe it. Amen. It doesn't work for me. Unlike, well, I'll use this analogy. The car's sitting out there, right? But the car won't work if I don't go out there, put my key in the ignition or however I start the car, and turn it on. That's right. It doesn't work for me unless I do something, right? It doesn't. It's still a car. Yep. It still runs. It still works. But it doesn't work for me until I do something, right? So God is still good. He's still strong. He's still mighty. He's still greater than anything else that's out there and all other things. But it doesn't work for me until I realize it. Because when I realize it, then I begin to be put in situations that look like they're going to overcome me. What are you talking about? Just like when Israel showed up at that Red Sea. That was a situation that looked like was going to overcome them. But come on now. This is a people. We ain't greater than water. That's why in Hebrew, the water going back and forth is called chaos. Because it's not like the street. The street got... On this side of the street, all the traffic is going that way. On that side of the street, all the traffic is going this way. Even when you talk about the airplanes, they have lanes, invisible lanes there where they are not crossing into each other's lanes, right? But when you talk about the sea doesn't have those boundaries. Any way that wind blows, that's the way the sea is going. And sometimes you got this patch of sea going that way, this patch of sea going that way, this patch of sea going that way. So when you get in the middle, you just toss to and fro. Standing still. And we thank God that he's not like that. That's right. That when they showed up to the Red Sea, as a matter of fact, the Bible says that he led them there. Yeah. He led them there. He took that way was easier for them. Yeah. Than taking them to a place where it was people that was going to fight them. Because he knew they wasn't ready for that yet. That's right. But he knew they wasn't ready for that, right? But he thought they was ready for the Red Sea. Think about it. Because in my mind, the Red Sea greater than some armies that's coming against me. Because they got a heart and a ticker that that stuff can stop. Well, who going to stop this water? And then here comes God, because there's none greater than him. There's no stronger than him. There's none mightier than him. Here comes God, and he didn't split it. So, we know we're coming into the New Year season, right? We know that, right? Passover signified New Year. That's what the Lord said, and this shall be a new year to you. It's going to be a new year. So, I'm talking with Master. So, in it being a new year, we looked at all of the things that they had to do to prepare for the new year, right? We looked at what they had to do with the lamb and putting their shoes on their feet and getting their staff in their hand and pretty much, and then no leaven in the bread so that they would be ready to move quickly when the death angel passed over, and then putting the blood on the post of the house to signify the Lord passing over them. The Lord knew what to do. The blood gave the Lord directions in that moment and told him, nope, not this house. This house is covered by the blood, right? And we correlated that with what Christ did for us on the cross. So when they came out, we know that they came out rich because the Lord told them to go and to go to their neighbors and ask their neighbors for stuff. And they blessed them with gold. They blessed them with clothing. They blessed them with stuff, right? So they was poor and slaves in the land, but on their way out, they wasn't going to be out there the way that they was in there, right? Not only that, they was coming out with great victory. So the Lord was covering them in every way possible. The Lord was covering them. Why don't I have it up? The Lord was covering them, their philosophical needs and their biological needs, and He was covering their safety needs and their loving and their belonging needs. He was even looking at their esteem needs so that they could become that which He created them to become. Right? He recognized that those things needed to be taken care of in order for these people to step up and be what God calls them to be. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And in this psychology, Maslow says that if people don't have, I think I've shown this years ago, people don't have everything that they need, they can't move to the next place. So in other words, if people don't have food, if they don't have shelter, if they're not sleeping, then they're stuck in that place. They'll never get to that blue spot where their star is. That's the place that we're supposed to get to. They can't get to those things because they're worried about these needs down here. So God is dealing with enslaved people who have been in slavery for all of these years, right? So we know this is trauma after trauma. This is generational trauma, historical trauma, you name it. As far as trauma is concerned, this is what that was, right? Their kids were born into slavery. They were born. They didn't just wake up one day and then 10 years later they were slaves. No, their kids were born into slavery generation after generation after generation. Now, when we study trauma now, we're taught that there is a trauma response. And in the trauma response, you can fight, you can flight, which means flee, or you can freeze. So we know what fight is, right? Here we go, we great fighting. That's why you got some people that you can say the least little thing and they tripping. Because there's a trauma response. That means there is something that has happened in their past that exceeded their ability to cope. And now they stuck there. So that every time it happens, this is the way they fight. They fighting, they cussing, they screaming, they yelling, they putting their hands on people. They angry, they're enraged. Why? Something happened. Something happened. All right. And then the next one is flight. You got some people that can't keep still for nothing. They going. As soon as it get hot, they going. As soon as something happened that they don't like, they going. Why? Because that's a trauma response. Maybe somebody in their lives never stuck around. Every time situations got difficult, they moved or they left. So it taught them, this is what I do. I can't take it. I can't handle it, so I'm just leaving. Even though I didn't give my word. I didn't sign the agreement. I didn't sign the lease. I didn't sign the contract. I already said I was going to do it, but I'm leaving because I can't handle it. I'm leaving it because this is just too much for me, a trauma response. And then the last one is freeze, where I'm just stuck. I don't do anything. I don't say anything. I ain't going nowhere. I'm in the same place that I've always been because something happened to me. Right. And a lot of us we're frozen. Not the movie Frozen. But we're frozen. We're in the place of standstill. And that was what God was trying to get them out of when he transitioned them and he called it a new year. And he told them, he set it up. He told them, listen, I told you that it was the Lord's Passover, right? And it represented the new year. But then the first day of that new year, they actually celebrated the Passover with the blood deed. That the Lord passed over us, the Lord delivers us from Egypt. And then the rest of those 7 days, they were supposed to celebrate the Feast of Unleavened Bread, right? And unleavened bread meant that there is no yeast in it. Now, yeast, or leaven, let me say, leaven represents an influencer. Something that's influencing the way that you think, something that's influencing the way that you act, something that's influencing the way that you behave, right? So you know that it's our thoughts, it's our behavior, and our actions. So our thoughts affect our emotions, and our emotions then dictate what I'm going to do next, right? Yeah. So leaven is an influencer. So he's telling them, as a memorial, I want you to celebrate unleavened bread along with the Passover. I want you to celebrate the Feast of Unleavened Bread so that it's a reminder to you that those things that you went through in Egypt, you don't have to go through anymore. So those taskmasters that you had that made you do stuff, you don't have that task anymore. So that thing that makes you stand still now, that's not a taskmaster for you now. The bondage that you were in when you were in Egypt before Christ saved you, before you surrendered yourself to Christ, you don't have those holds now. The prison doors are no longer there. We say they open, but they're not there. It's not there anymore. The only place that it is now is here. Right. He's saying, get rid of the unleavened bread in here. Or get rid of the leavened bread in here. Because it's influencing what you do next. It's influencing how you feel from moment to moment. Let me show you something. We don't see things as they are. We see them as We are. So every response that I have is a response based on where I am, not where Devin is. It's based on where I am. It's not what Apostle does. It's based on what I think about it. And that's why you have some people that can go through the exact same thing, but have two different responses. And if they're not healed from the traumas and the things that they were exposed to, then it's always going to be a negative situation. It's always going to be something that is coming after me. It's always going to be competition. It's always going to be the confusion. It's always going to be frustration. It's always going to be this. It's always going to be that. I'm never going to have enough. Those absolute words. It's always going to be something. Because I saw it to where I am, not where it actually happened. And the Lord gave us that kind of power that we get to determine reality. But determining reality comes from whether we allow leaven in or not, the thing that influenced us. So we have to learn not to allow the trauma that happened or the situation that happened, the dumb stuff that happens, influence us greater than what Christ did when he died on the cross and set us free. We meditate on the trauma. In fact, it's a thing where there's a trauma response even in our bodies. Yeah. It's possible to think about an issue subconsciously. You don't even know you're thinking about it. That's why it's great to talk about stuff so that you can process it and so that you can bring it to the obedience of Christ. The Bible talks about in Corinthians to cast down the imaginations that exalt themselves against what you know about Christ, know about God, and you bring it to the obedience of Christ. You make it bow to what God said. You make it bow to what you know about God. But we don't want to do the work because we don't know we can do the work. We think because it happened, we stuck there. And we not. That was what him delivered. That's what the Passover was about. That was what them Exodus was about. That was what them crossing the Red Sea was about. That was what Jesus dying and being beat and then dying and then being raised up again. That's what that was about. All of that was about to set us free so that we don't have to be stuck in the trauma response. We don't have to be frozen. So everything, every day, like let me go back to it. So a person that's stuck in safety needs, right? All they're thinking about is themselves. And what about me and what it is that I need? Or my money that person is never going to get their last. Because I might need it tomorrow because they're not secure in what Christ did. They're not secure in the newness of life. The Spirit of God leading and guiding them out of one situation into the next, out of that into the next, until they become who God has called them to be. They're stuck in. I wanted to show this to you. It came up last week. I said in this seminar, and the man was talking about the trauma response. And I knew I wanted to talk about it, but I had forgot. But this morning, the Lord brought it back to me. So I want you to look at it. And I want you to think about which one you're stuck in. You got food and shelter, which is the first one. Okay. Biological and psychological needs. You don't got to do that. I'm going to put it up when I do the video. Okay. Security. The next one is safety needs, security, health, and finances. Where are you stuck? Where are you stuck? There are some people, when it comes to safety, they're going to steal, kill, and destroy just to make sure they're okay, them and their families are okay. And then you have love and belonging. That's friendship, intimacy, family, and connections. I know for me personally, that one right there, that's the one right there that'll hem me up if I'm not careful. If I don't keep my hand in God's hand and stay in his face and allow him to heal me from situation to situation, he's a healer. He's not like the surgery. You know, when you do the surgery, you take the surgery and it fixes you and something else may come up. He's a healer that if you need healing every day, you can go to him every day and get your healing. It's nothing wrong with going to prayer and feeling good from prayer. It's supposed to be that way. People will tell you that God is not a Santa Claus. He's not this and not that. Listen, he came to make you feel better because he recognized that if you don't comprehend a thing in the right way, you're never going to self-actualize. You'll never be what he created you to be. So yeah, he wants you to feel better. And we do that in his presence. In his presence, the Bible declares in Psalm 16, is the fullness of joy. In his presence. So I'm making room for his presence. And when I realize that I ain't been there in a while because I'm hurting, that's a good indication whether you spend some time with God. How loud is your pain? Whether it be physical or mental. How loud is your pain? How loud is your problem? How loud is it? Because after you spend time with God, that's what's loud.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
After we spend time with God, that's when we can smile again.
Mm-hmm.
Because we relieve ourselves there.
Yeah.
He is our relief. Mm-hmm. And in him, if we continue to place ourselves in that way, that's what he taught them when they came out of Egypt. He taught them. He taught them by giving them the cloud by day and the fire by night, right? Mm-hmm. And then when trouble came, and how he separated them and distinguished them from trouble, he taught them that it's my presence that makes the difference.
That's right.
My presence and my promise.
Yeah.
That's what makes the difference. But if I'm stepping out of and I'm getting stuck, because they kept getting stuck, right? Because they had all those needs, right?
Yeah, they did.
And we see that when God got mad and said, you have tempted me these 10 times. Because they kept getting stuck. They kept having that trauma response that would cause them to either, because they wanted to go back to Egypt. That's flee, right? Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. They kept fighting. When they fighting, it was fighting Moses and God. When they fighting, mm-hmm. trauma response. And then they was frozen. I cannot see past this moment. Because I remember where I came from. And I still feel the effects of where I came from. But again, if I keep my mind on him, and I delight myself in him, and I live in his presence.
That's it. Yeah.
If I live in his presence, if I fight my way, kind of like what we did this morning in worship, I fight my way to it. I fight my way in it until I feel something. I don't always start out feeling something. Mm-hmm. In the middle of it, my heart gets involved. Sometimes I start out praying with my mind, and then my heart gets involved. And then I can sense him showing up, even though he was already there. But then I become aware, like Adam and Eve did after they ate the apple. They became aware that they were naked. They lived in that then, right? Then in prayer, I become aware of his presence. I become aware. And when I become aware of his presence, it changes everything. Then when I was getting ready to put a period to the prayer, it just kept going. A song came out of it and everything because I became aware. I became aware. And when we become aware, we make room for God. So that God begins to triumph everywhere in this pyramid. He begins to triumph for us everywhere in this pyramid. Where now it's not about safety and food because I'm secure. He got me. I got a place to live. I got a place to stay. I'm not running around here trying to figure out. A lot of people that we serve, that's their biggest issue. They're stuck right there. I don't care what you say to them. They're stuck sometimes that they can't even hear you. They can't even hear what you're saying to them. That's why you don't tell a brother that's in need, go pray about it. You meet the need.
Exactly.
Because if you want them to listen, you meet the need. Yeah. Because you remove the stumbling block from them hearing. That's why God takes care of us. Mm-hmm. Because he knows that if he didn't, we ain't going to listen to him. The Bible talks about that corruption is in the world because of the lust of men. Men who got needs and don't know how to get their needs satisfied in God. The new year, it's the new year. And he wants us to memorialize removing the leaven from our houses, removing the houses, our minds, our houses, removing the leaven from our minds. Want you to take, I read, in preparing for this, I don't know who the writer was, but I read that they actually, to prepare for the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, that they actually take a day and go throughout their house and clean their house and get even down like how we eat and crumbs drop on the floor, they drop in the crevices of our pillows. Yeah. They take a day and they go from room to room and they start cleaning, go down and make sure there's no leaven in the house. Bread might have dropped down. Yeah. So they make sure there's no leaven in the house. And then once they get that room clean, they can't go back in there. Because they don't want them to mess it up again because they prepare before it starts to get rid of it. So they might have some hours left to be able to eat bread, but we ain't going to do it in that room because we already cleaned it in preparation for the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Mm-hmm. So the Lord is admonishing us to do the same thing, that we have to remove the leaven out of our houses. What is the leaven? The leaven is everything that keeps us stuck. That burden, that weight, that heartache, that heaviness, that thing that reminds us over and over again that I was adopted. That thing that reminds us over and over again that they left me. That thing that reminds us over and over again that I was homeless and I didn't have anything. Do you know a homeless man that finally gets a house? Do you know that he will work? If he's stuck, he will work and work and work to keep the house, have millions of dollars saved up in the bank just to have a place to stay. That is his only goal. Because he went through a time where he did not have a place to live. Now he spends all of his time not returning to that state, as if that state was the goal. And that makes sense? That state is not the goal. That's why when we know it too. That's why we overcome stuff, right? But we got to return to the same place that we overcame in. Life goes on. You don't get stuck there. Life goes on. You got victory. Now we move on to the next place of victory. Right. The next circumstance, the next situation. But when you get stuck, everything's about that. Yep. You ain't going to mess up my money and my family not have a place to live. Where's that come from? It came from one day not having a place. And I finally made back to that. So that's what I'm working for now, to make sure my family is secure. Okay, now the family is secure. What was the family created to do? I don't know, because I'm worried about safety and security. That's what we do. Not trusting God. So we know we have to plant a seed to get seed, right? So if I'm so stuck on safety and security, I'm never going to sow a seed. Because I can't give you my last, or I can't give you half, or I can't give you a third or a piece. Because it's going to take away from what I have to do. But when you're operating the way that God operates, then you know that in order to get more, something has to fall into the ground. A seed has to be sown for something to grow from it, right? So, I mean, as I'm talking, you look at it, because you know yourself. I don't know you all. I'm not always with you. I may know some stuff, but you know the real deal. You know what keeps you in your thoughts. You know that thing that keeps you from stepping out on faith with God, because I'm stuck, like Israel, right? They kept complaining. You brought us all the way out here to die. They couldn't even remember. They couldn't, because of their trauma. They could not see past what they had gone through to see the God that was literally dancing for them, performing for them, so that they would know who he was. They could not see it. Right? So the Lord says the response that he was, look, before it even happened, he told them what to do.
Yes, he did.
Get rid of the leaven. Because the leaven is what's going to influence everything else that you do. That's what leaven does. And in 1 Corinthians 5, Paul told them, a little leaven leavens the whole lump. A little yeast, well, if you put it in there and then let it sit, it's going to be everywhere in the whole body. It's like cancer. There's a lot of times people, especially when they open it up and expose it, cancer will filtrate your entire body. You have cancer everywhere. So you don't let the leaven in. And if you figure out that the leaven is there, because he did tell them to get rid of the leaven. So in other words, there was leaven there. Then you walk through your land, your thoughts. And you be intentional about it, because we always thinking about something. We're always thinking about something. Our mind is always on something. Start paying attention to become aware of what it is that you're thinking about. And if you become aware of what it is you're thinking about, it'll tell you if you're stuck. It'll tell you if you're fighting, if you're running. What do you run from? It's something that I want now. And I don't know where this hang-up came from, but it's a hang-up and it's real for me. But I don't know where it comes from that when it's time to do those types of things, I just run. Well, I thought you said that was what you wanted. I did. But then why? Because I don't like this. You just run. That's trauma response. Now, I can't pinpoint and tell you what happened, where it was. I don't know. All I know that one day I wasn't like this, and then I was. So I need to deal with it if it's keeping me from beholding what God wants me to behold. It's something he's trying to get me to see. They get to after they saw all this, right? They get to the promised land. And the Lord told them to go into the land. Go send spies into the land. And they brought back grapes. These huge grapes, right? But because the men of the land was so big, the report became negative. Because they could not see past the trauma. We've been there before. Egypt was bigger than us. We already know what that looks like. He not going over there. We ain't got no power. We can't fight. We ain't already been subdued by by a nation. We are not going back into slavery. It got stuck. It became all about the biological, the philosophical, and the safety needs. It got stuck between those two. They couldn't move past it because they wouldn't get to the love and belonging to see that God had accepted them a part of His kingdom. That God had accepted them as Israel was God's son. That God had accepted them as His child, which means that they knew the custom of the father, they knew the custom of the household, so they know that everything that the father has, He gives to the son, so that the son can now grow the house. But they was missing that because they were stuck in what hurt me. Last week, as we ended, when Apostle was teaching, she was teaching about how the Lord freed us, and now what are we going to do as a response to that freedom? And then we went home and the same situations came up. And unfortunately, the same situations came up and the same responses came up that came up before Christ. And it came up because we ain't did something about the leaven in the house. We got to get rid of the leaven. Walk through and get rid of all of the leaven. Get rid of everything that influences us. What keeps you from moving forward? What keeps you from doing what you know you're supposed to do? What keeps you from going to get the job? What keeps you from going to go get the contract? What keeps you from going for the business deal? What keeps you from going back to school? What keeps you from whatever? Whatever it is. What keeps you from it? What stops you? I'm not going back there again. Ain't nobody going to talk to me like that. That's a trauma response. Who you think you talking to? The last blah, blah, blah that talked to me like that, that's a trauma response. And because of it now, we can't move. I'm never going to get there because I'm never going to let somebody talk to me like that. But in God, I recognize that if they do or if they don't, I'm still okay. Because it's the Lord that supplies all of my needs. He's the one that set me up for who I am. He's the one that establishes my esteem needs. That's another one that's a big one. Because we don't see ourselves the way that God sees us. So I ain't never going to stand up here and teach. Or I'm never going to get the job that pays $100,000 or $200,000. I'm never going to go get it because I don't think I'm good enough. When I got the same degree, because we read the job description and we saw that in the job description, we had everything that we needed to get the job. But we won't go get the job because we don't believe that we should have something like that. We're not good enough. And the enemy, he does his job and trying to make us feel like we're not good enough. I did this and then somebody complained, so now I feel like I didn't do something right. Yeah. I'm not good enough. Nah. Just because I made a mistake has nothing to do with my value or my worth. That's right. Me making a mistake just means there's something additional that I need to learn. That's all it means. I was listening to this guy, and I thank God, because you say things sometimes and you don't even recognize what you're saying, and it was your truth, right? And you teach it. But when you hear somebody who went to school to do it, and they've been doing it for years, you be like, oh, I was saying that all along. Didn't know I was saying the right thing. So this man was talking about that when these people get stuck in trauma, they come to counseling, right? Tells you some people need counseling. Go talk to somebody and process through this thing that happened to you so that you don't continue to fight, so you don't continue to run, or so that you don't continue to freeze. Go talk to somebody to unlock this thing so that you can see it a different way. And the one thing that he said was, you come to counseling to change the definition of what you went through. I can't change what you went through, but I can change the way that you see, or help you change rather, the way that you see what you went through. If I can do that's processing, that's going through and get the leaven out. If you would go through those things that hurt you, and that keeps you in this situation, keeps you bound, keeps you locked in, if you will go through them again, and go through them again with the mind of an overcomer, then you would no longer see yourself as a victim. You will see yourself not even a survivor, because we say that too. Anybody can survive. Yeah. Survive, you can survive, you got that much inch of life in you. Right. You are not that person. You are, and we are overcomers. So if I can go back through the rape, right, because it's already plaguing me anyway. So if I can look at it with a fresh set of eyes, my own eyes, a fresh set of eyes under the mind of God, right? If I can relook at the rape, if I can relook at the molestation, if I can relook at the abuse, if I can look at it again, he left me. If I can look at it again from the perception of God, then I can see that I went through all of that. And I overcame. Oh my, I can do anything.
That's powerful.
Ain't that something?
Yeah.
I went through all of that.
And made it.
And I came out and I'm here and I'm strong.
Yeah.
I can do anything now.
Wow.
That's why the Bible talks about casting our care at our feet. That some of the things that we've been through and triumph, it should give us a big head. You made it through that. You mean your mom left you and you ain't had nobody? I was thinking about somebody in here's testimony. You mean your mom left you, your father left you, no other family wanted you, and you had to hitchhike to another state and then live with a prostitute, and you done raised 2 kids and you got a good job and you in your right mind, right? Oh, you did all of that? I'm scared of you.
Right.
But the enemy will take that person and torment them because the mom left you.
Yeah.
Never letting them see, she left you, but you still here.
Mm-hmm.
She left you, but you still made it.
Mm-hmm.
She left you and you are in your right mind.
Mm-hmm.
If we would take and get a fresh set of eyes and re-examine those things that make us fight, those things that make us flee, and those things that freezes us, and see it from the mentality of God, then you would see that he was with you all along, and that's why you're still here. You didn't just make it. And because you went through it, it makes you super. Not small. He's going to send somebody to say you ain't nothing because you went through it. But you don't listen to the lies of it because that's trying to bury you. It's trying to keep you from self-actualizing. When God set the bounds of our habitation, he didn't design it, but he allowed you to go through it because he knew that you were an overcomer.
That's right.
He knew that you would overcome it at every level. He knew. In other words, he trusted you to come through it, knowing that he got you. That's why he brought them to that Red Sea, because they had overcome already with God, but that's still overcoming. They had overcome already Egypt. This is a people that walked out rich, and they was eating from a slop pot. But they walked out rich with gold. They sat in the middle of an all-out war between God and Egypt, and they came out, you know, we got a war going on now, and people are dying, and innocent people are dying. That is not what happened in Egypt.
That's right.
That is not what happened in Egypt.
Saved all.
In Egypt, God made a distinction that right in the middle of the death angel passing through the land, Israel lived.
Yeah.
And that was enough information to get them to the Red Sea. Now all of that is going to part this Red Sea. I'm an overcomer. I'm not an overcomer. We look at the fact that he had to come get us and save us. For whatever reason, the overcomer state to us is I ain't never been through nothing, never had to go through nothing. I'm sitting pretty, everything is right. That's overcoming. That ain't overcoming. You was born with a silver spoon in your mouth.
Right.
That's not overcoming. Overcoming is I had an obstacle and I don't have it no more, and I'm still walking.
Yeah.
I'm still moving. I'm still talking. I'm still believing. I'm still hoping. That's overcoming.
That's right.
I'm sorry for you. We got to look at it differently. That's why he said remove the leaven. Remove the influencer. Remove the thing that's influencing you. To see it from a victim's mentality. That's for me too. You got the job because you're the right one for the job.
There you go.
And because the one that you wanted, you didn't get it because it was less than what I created you to be.
That's right.
You wanted it because you thought it was easy. If we could change our mindset so we don't get stuck. So look at it. Look at it. Where you at? Where you at? He changed my trajectory last week. Because y'all know family is a big thing for me. And I'll clam up when it comes to that.
Mhm.
Real talk. It's stuff I won't do. Family was an issue for me. And it wasn't until I became an adult that I realized how big of an issue that it was. But last week, or the last time that I taught, the Lord made a revelation about everything that I needed was in the bloodline. You sweating over what you didn't get physically, when that wasn't what you were supposed to get anyway. You were supposed to get it through the bloodline.
Yeah.
And you got everything you need, and that's why you still sound like them. And that's why you still look like them.
Yeah.
That the piece that you thought you didn't get, you got it anyway. Recognizing that God is in control, that He's stronger, that He's greater, that He's stronger, and that He's mightier than anything. That there is nobody else like Him. No one can be more powerful than God. They can't be. It's illegal. It's not like, there's some, we're not supposed to get sick, but we get sick and it's illegal and we got to fight it. That doesn't happen when it comes to God and His power. There is nobody illegally having more power than God. It doesn't work that way. It's not allowed. It can't happen. It doesn't exist because nobody can understand the depths of who God is. So how are you ever going to be greater than Him? He is. He said, I am that I am. And none of us can transform without God. So when we take it all in, that's why it's important to come in and hear the word and go back and eat on it. And pay attention to the things that He brings your way throughout the week because He's leading you somewhere. Remember, you can't see the cloud and you can't see the fire, but it's there. How I know it's there? Because if you believe in Jesus Christ and you died with Him, you got up a new man and a new woman. And that only happens by His Spirit. So that means He's still leading and He's still guiding you. It just doesn't look like a cloud and it doesn't look like a fire. And if He's leading and He's guiding us, then you better make sure, you better realize that everything that's happening in our lives, He's involved.
Absolutely.
He's involved. I'm not saying He orchestrated it, but He's involved.
Yeah.
He's involved. I can look at that one story and see just how involved He is. And He's involved to ensure that I get the victory.
Yeah.
To ensure that I overcome. If I listen, if I follow, if I remove the leaven. Go to Philippians 4. In pieces. And then He brings all the pieces together and you got a whole picture. I love Him for that. I love Him. I love Him for being a participant, an active participant in my healing. And even when we read through their story, He did get frustrated with them, but He had self-control and He had temperance and there was somebody praying and He didn't leave them, recognizing, okay, they stuck. He intervened and said, okay, you've been going around this mountain long enough. You've been here long enough. Come on, I got a better place prepared for you. We talked about that place last week, right? I have a better place prepared for you. But the only way you're going to receive it is if you can see it a different way. Because I didn't come that you didn't have trouble.
Right.
I came that you may have life and life abundantly. Why do I need abundant life? Why do I need abundant life? Because in this world, you're going to have trouble. And I need you to see that I'm greater than the trouble.
That's right.
I'm mightier than the trouble. I'm stronger than the trouble. I need you to see that I am. Amen. I need you to see that I am. So in Romans 7, Paul said to do good is in me. I want to do good. It's not in me. So here's your how. Philippians 4. 4 and 8. I told you to get it, then I didn't get it. And so the Bible says, this is how I get rid of the leaven in my mind. This is how I go out and clean it. Walk through my thoughts and clean it. It says, so finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things of a good report, if there be any virtue in it, and if there be any praise, think on these things. So this is how I get rid of the leaven. It worked for me this week too, because I was thinking about something negative, and I asked myself, "How are you thinking about that? That's not of a good report." That's not the one I used. I used another one, but I don't remember what it was. But I had to check myself. I had to get rid of that leaven. Because if I go in there focusing on what they did to me, then my response is going to be a response of a victim. I'm going to always be on the defense. And if I'm on the defense, then I'm not in a position to give somebody grace that needs it, because I'm going to attack them because I feel like they're attacking me.
Right.
But if I show up from the place of I overcame all of that I went through, and because I overcame it, the Lord put me in this place, and I can deal with your failures. I can deal with your issues because I overcame. I don't have to take personal what you said, or I'm talking about myself. I know we had a conversation, but I'm really talking about myself. I'm talking about myself because I had to have that talk with me, with myself. When you recognize that the Lord sends us in as ambassadors, and the Bible is clear that He sends you in as an ambassador to be the cure in that place. But if you're so self-centered, everything hurts you because of what you went through. Everything offends you because of what you went through. And you're not checking yourself, then you're going to do to people what was done to you.
That's right.
And we said that we were hiding under His shadow, right? Didn't it say that? We read that in Psalms 91. We're hiding under His shadow. So what He does, we do. And then in Psalms 121, we found that He's in our shadow. He's our shadow. So what we do, He does. Right? But we recognize that He's a God that's one. He's one. So every character about Him, every name is a character.
Yeah.
Everything about Him is in unity.
Yeah.
It's in harmony. You don't have the healer over here making people sick. Right?
Yeah.
Because He's a healer. So if I'm in His shadow, and if I'm His shadow and He's my shadow, which means we're doing the same thing, then I can't be hurting folk. I can't be sitting still stuck. I can't be running from stuff that I'm supposed to face. Because in that situation that you're put on display, they think that's God. How I know? People don't come to church because there's hypocrites in the church. They associate you with God. They associate you with God. So I can't get stuck, because me getting stuck is going to produce more corruption in the world. Because now I'm just taking care of me. I'm just going to God to get a place to live. Or to get big-headed, esteem. That was another one for me. Where I had to learn how to humble myself because of my self-esteem was broke down so much that when I got a little bit of the limelight, I was going to keep it. No matter what it cost, even if it cost me damaging somebody else. That's not God. Now you got to go around again because you didn't get it yet. You didn't make Him your security in that place. I was just in a situation, and this is what I believe happened. God is awesome. He's amazing. And He got you on every hand. He's got us on every hand. Whether we realize it or not, He still got us. And I was in this situation, and I did what I normally do when my back is against the wall. I came out fighting. Trauma response. You're not going to do me like they did me. Trauma response. And I responded in a way, in a clever enough way, that it didn't look like blatant disrespect. that it came off like I was just defending myself. But I knew what was going on the inside of me. I thank God that they didn't see what was going on in me, because they would have probably saw it as, okay, she's not going to be in harmony with us. Because as soon as she hears something she don't like, she going to trip. So I just got this job. The Lord let me have a job. So the man comes to me, or however we get in this meeting, and he says, somebody told me you was feisty. The blessing in that is, the meeting had already happened. In my mind, from that meeting, he should have known she feisty. But because the Lord covers us on every end, he just allowed them to hear my heart in that meeting. And I see what I was doing, my stuck mode. That he didn't recognize I was feisty. Because he was the target in that meeting. Because I felt like he had made me the target. But he didn't see it. God can do anything. That humbles me. So I don't have to be stuck in safety or belonging or esteem, because he's with me. And he didn't show up empty-handed. You ever had a friend? I've been a friend. And then I ain't had no money for a long time. So my friend had to help me every time until I got some money. That's not how God is. He shows up with a pocket full, with a handful, and he makes it available to you and me. So if you're in a place and he's in a place, you're covered. So we give you permission to see yourself in an overcome state, so that you can become what he created you to become. Because as long as you don't see yourself as an overcomer, then you only have a trauma response.
Yep.
And you're stuck. So I challenge you this week that as these things come up, that you do Philippians 4:8. That you cast down those imaginations that's causing you to feel stuck, causing you to agonize about a situation, because fear brings torment. It torments you.
That's right.
And as long as you're in that state, you won't produce. And we need to produce. That's why I let him die. Because there's a purpose for you. You are holy. Holy means you are set apart for a reason. All of us are set apart for a different reason. But you're set apart. So that means you got everything you need to do where it is your feet have been planted. That's why when they showed up to the Red Sea, and Moses went to God, and like, yo, what we gonna do? It's the Red Sea. He said, what's in your hand? What's in your hand? In other words, I gave you everything that you need. We don't have to be stuck. We just need to get rid of the leaven. Remove the leaven out of your house. That's Exodus 12:5, I believe. Remove the leaven out of your house.